People ask, how did you make your first million? They think the million is the point. It isn't. The point is the moment you stop being powerless, the moment you can choose, the moment your decisions stop being dictated by bills, fear, and short timelines. $1 million is just one of the numbers that tends to mark that transition for a lot of people. But if you want something useful from this story, you should focus on what actually created the shift. Because if you copy the superficial parts, like the sleeping on the floor mythology, you'll miss the real mechanism. So I'll tell you the mechanism, not the fairy tale. Let's start with something uncomfortable. The first reason most people never reach their first million is that they treat money as a reward. They treat it like dessert. I treated money like propellant, fuel, a tool, a way to buy time, reduce friction, and compound optionality. That mindset changes everything. Because once money becomes fuel, you stop asking, how can I spend this? And you start asking, what can this unlock? That question is the difference between consumption and compounding. Now, what did my first million actually come from? It came from ownership, not salary, not a raise, not a promotion, ownership. In the 1990s, the internet was in an early, chaotic phase, and most people didn't understand what it would become. That's not a flex, it's an advantage. Anytime you're early, the field is disorganized. The rules are unclear. The opportunities are asymmetric. But here's the catch. You still need leverage. And I didn't have capital. So I built leverage the only way I could. Skills that scale. Software. Systems. Engineering thinking. Because code has an unusual property. You build it once, and it replicates. One unit of effort can create 1,000 units of outcome. Most people spend their lives doing work that resets to zero each day. They wake up, trade time for money, and the scoreboard resets. Code doesn't reset. A product doesn't reset. A system doesn't reset. That's why those are the paths where first million becomes plausible. Now, the first big checkpoint in my story is Zip 2. This part gets told poorly online. Some people compress it into, he got lucky. No. Zip 2 was a city guide / business directory product for newspapers, tools to help businesses and advertisers show up online. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't a cool founder story. It was a real product people paid for. And in 1999, Compaq acquired Zip2 for roughly $305 to $307 million. And the widely reported figure is that I netted about $22 million from that deal. That's not first million, that's first serious capital. But here's what matters: what you do after the first big win. Most people think the game is make money. The real game is don't become soft. Because your first big liquidity event exposes your time preference. Are you someone who consumes now or someone who invests now? You can end the story there. You can buy comfort, status, and applause. Or you can buy leverage. I chose leverage. That's why I put money into X.com, an early attempt at building a better, faster financial system. X.com eventually merged with Confinity and became PayPal. And PayPal, famously, was sold to eBay for $1.5 billion in 2002. Now, how much did I personally walk away with? Different reputable outlets report slightly different numbers depending on taxes, timing, and whether they're using pre-tax or post-tax framing. You'll commonly see figures in the $165 million to $180 million range in mainstream reporting and finance references. But here's the point. After PayPal, the capital base existed. The question became, What do you do with it? This is where the story stops being about money and starts being about psychology. Because money doesn't just give you power, it gives you temptation. The biggest temptation is simple: to convert capital into lifestyle. And lifestyle inflation is the most polite way to destroy your future. People think ruin looks dramatic. They think it looks like a crash. Most ruin is quiet. It's subscriptions. It's fixed costs. It's obligations. It's the gradual building of a cage that you pay for yourself. So here's the first rule I'd tell anyone trying to reach their first million. Rule 1. Keep your burn rate low enough to stay dangerous. Dangerous means you can take risks. You can move fast. You can say no. You can survive shocks. High fixed costs turn you into a hostage. You can have a high income and still be broke if your lifestyle is engineered to consume it. That's not an opinion. That's arithmetic. Now you might say, okay, fine, save money. That's obvious. But saving isn't the real skill. The real skill is resisting the social pressure to look successful before you are free. Because the easiest way to lose is to start buying symbols. Symbols of success are expensive and mechanically useless. They don't increase leverage. They don't increase optionality. They don't improve your decision making. They just lock you into a treadmill. Rule 2. Don't confuse attention with progress. If your life is optimized to impress strangers, you will not build wealth. You will build a performance. Now let's talk about the part people love to argue about: work hours. I've publicly said in multiple places that if you want to make a big impact, you usually need to work a lot, sometimes extreme hours, especially early on. You can find this sentiment repeated in coverage and quotes attributed to me about 80 to 100-hour weeks, and the broader idea that nobody changed the world on 40 hours a week. But here's the part most people miss. Hours are not the goal. Speed of learning is the goal. If you're putting in huge hours and learning nothing, you're just aging faster. Rule 3. Compress the feedback loop. That means build something, ship it, get reality, iterate, repeat. Most people spend years preparing. They're not preparing, they're hiding. They hide in planning because planning feels safe. Execution feels like judgment. Reality judges you. People don't want that. But wealth is a byproduct of reality contact. Now, if you're early in your career, the fastest way to reach your first meaningful capital base is not to obsess about a 10% return in a portfolio. It's to increase your earning power. And the most reliable way to increase earning power is to build rare, scalable skills. Rule 4. Invest in compounding skills before compounding money. Because a 10% return on a small number is not life-changing. But a 10 times increase in earning power can be. That's why I learned software and engineering thinking. And you can see this pattern as far back as my childhood, coding a small game called Blastar and selling the source code for about $500 when I was around 12. Multiple outlets and references mention this story. Again, don't worship the story. Worship the mechanism. The mechanism is skills that scale. Now, once you have some capital, you still have one more hurdle before your first million becomes likely: decision making. Because money amplifies mistakes. Small mistakes at low scale are annoying. Small mistakes at high scale are fatal. So you need an operating system for decisions. People call it mindset. That's a vague word. I prefer systems. And one of the best systems is first principles reasoning. There are credible write-ups quoting me on approaching problems through physics and first principles, reasoning from fundamentals rather than analogy. Rule 5. Don't copy outcomes. Rebuild logic from fundamentals. Most people try to get rich by copying the rich. They copy surface-level behavior. They copy morning routines. They copy aesthetics. They copy phrases. That's cosplay. If you want the outcome, you need the underlying logic. Ask, what is the real constraint? What is actually scarce? What input produces the output? When you do that, you start seeing why people stay broke. They overpay for comfort. They underpay for capability. They buy status. They rent leverage. And then they blame the world. Now, there's a more controversial part of my story that matters if you're serious about wealth. After PayPal, I didn't preserve the money. I redeployed it into SpaceX and Tesla. That decision is often described as fearless. It wasn't fearlessness. It was conviction plus tolerance for uncertainty. But I'm not going to pretend it was a clean win. It was not. By 2008, both companies were under severe pressure. SpaceX had multiple early failures, with Falcon 1 before a successful flight, and reporting has described the company being close to running out of money around that period. There's also widely cited reporting that NASA awarded a major contract, often reported around $1.6 billion, after the successful launch, which was crucial for survival. This matters for your first million story because it demonstrates a principle most people don't understand. Rule 6. Risk is unavoidable. Choose intelligent risk. Avoiding risk is not safety. It is a slow loss. The question is not, do you take risk? The question is, do you take risk with preparation? Prepared risk is asymmetric. You do the work, you understand the failure modes, you reduce uncertainty, then you bet. Unprepared risk is gambling. You hope. And hope is not a plan. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but I'm not building rockets. Good. You don't need rockets. You need asymmetry. Asymmetry means small downside, large upside. That can be building a product, learning a rare skill, starting a business with low fixed costs, creating media, creating software, creating an asset that scales. And yes, today, my public presence on X, formerly Twitter, is part of how I communicate and shape narratives, and you can see the general themes of my thinking there over time. But here's another uncomfortable truth about building wealth. Rule 7. Attention is a currency, but it's a dangerous one. Attention can help you build distribution. Distribution can help you sell. Sales can help you build capital. But attention also attracts noise, and noise can destroy execution. So you must protect your mind. You must protect your time, because time is the real compounding asset. People say money compounds. That's incomplete. Time compounds. Money just multiplies what you do with time. If you waste time, money won't save you. If you use time well, money accelerates the outcome. Now, to make this practical, I'll give you a set of rules, non-generic, non-cliche, built from the mechanisms above. These are rules for reaching your first million without needing luck fantasies. Rule 8. Build something people pay for, not something people praise. Praise doesn't pay. Likes don't pay. Applause doesn't pay. Revenue is reality. $1 million tends to come from a simple formula. Value created times distribution times time times ownership. Most people optimize one piece and ignore the rest. They create value but have no distribution. They get distribution but create no value. They do both but own nothing. They own something but quit too early. So ask yourself, which part is missing? Rule 9. Own upside or accept a ceiling. This is where people get emotional. They say, it's not fair. Fair is irrelevant. If you want a million, you need exposure to upside. That means equity, ownership, or assets. If your only path is wages, you will likely cap out unless your wage becomes extremely high. That's just how linear income works. Rule 10. Keep a low ego portfolio. A lot of people build a financial life that is basically an ego project. They buy what signals status, not what improves outcomes. Your first million does not come from showing the world you're winning. It comes from quietly building leverage. If you want a simple test, if you remove social media and removed other people's opinions, would you still buy the same things? If not, you're being controlled. Rule 11. Don't let bureaucracy enter your personal life. Bureaucracy is what happens when systems exist to protect themselves rather than achieve outcomes. You can become bureaucratic personally. You create rules, habits, and commitments that exist only because that's what people do. Eliminate those. There's a well-circulated algorithm associated with how I push teams to reduce waste. Question requirements, delete steps, simplify, accelerate, then automate. You can find this summarized in credible write-ups, often referencing my approach inside companies. That sequence is not just for factories, it's for your finances. Question every expense. Delete what doesn't create leverage. Simplify what remains. Accelerate only after simplification. Automate last. Most people automate chaos. They put subscriptions on autopay. They auto-finance their own trap. Don't do that. Rule 12. Protect your ability to endure boredom. This is the secret nobody wants. Wealth is built in boring seasons. The season where you're not viral. The season where nobody cares. The season where you're doing repetitive work. The season where progress is slow. That's where compounding begins. Most people quit there because it's not emotionally rewarding. They need dopamine. They need praise. They need novelty. But novelty is the enemy of compounding. Compounding requires repetition. Rule 13. Avoid reverse compounding. Debt is reverse compounding when it's used to buy consumption. Some debt can be productive if it finances an asset that produces value. But consumer debt is a time machine that drags your future into the present and charges you for the privilege. It turns your next 5 years into repayment. If you want your first million, stop financing lifestyle. Finance leverage. Rule 14. Be allergic to fragility. Fragility is when small shocks destroy you. High fixed costs make you fragile. Bad health makes you fragile. Low skills make you fragile. High ego makes you fragile. Your goal is not to look rich. Your goal is to be unbreakable long enough to build. Rule 15. Choose a hard problem and commit longer than feels reasonable. This is where first million actually happens. It's not the money that's hard. It's the commitment. Most people want progress without identity change, but wealth requires identity change. You become someone who can delay gratification, someone who can handle uncertainty, someone who can build through boredom, someone who can learn when it's humiliating, someone who can ignore noise. So if you want a clear sequence you can apply, Step 1. Get your burn rate under control. Not budgeting, freedom building. Step 2. Build a scalable skill stack. Software is one route, but the principle is scalable value. Step 3. Build something people pay for. A product, a service, a system, media, a tool. Step 4. Own upside. Equity, royalties, assets. Step 5. Reinvest before you reward yourself. Build the base first. Step 6. Use first principles thinking to cut waste and increase speed. Question, delete, simplify, accelerate, automate. Step 7. Stay in the game, long enough for compounding to start. That's it. Now I'll end with the part people avoid because it's too honest. You don't deserve your first million. You earn it by becoming the person who can hold it. Because making money is one challenge, keeping it is another. Deploying it intelligently is the real one. And if you're asking for a shortcut, you're already telling me something about your time preference. Fix that first. If you can delay comfort now, you buy optionality later. If you can tolerate boredom now, you unlock compounding later. If you can build leverage now, your first million becomes a probability, not a dream. And once you reach it, don't let it make you soft. Make it make you dangerous.